What is up, guys? My name is Vertigo, and welcome to Gaming on a Budget, a review series where we take a look at games that are easily accessible to those of us who don't have expendable income to drop on games. Today, we're going to be looking at Lords of the Fallen, a game developed by Deck 13 Interactive and CI Games, released about 2 years ago in late October. It is a single-player action RPG game and is available for free with PlayStation Plus through the start of October. Aside from being free, what drew me to this game was the imagery and the themes that reminded me a lot of Skyrim, which is a vastly popular open-world game, as I'm sure most of you are aware. As I played through it, though, I found that it was nothing like Skyrim. As a matter of fact, I found it to be a lot more like Dark Souls, and we'll see a lot of the similarities between them as we get into the gameplay. In Lords of the Fallen, you take control of Harkon, a convicted criminal who is released from his prison to help fight a demonic scourge invading the land. In addition to the adventure RPG aspects the game has similar to Dark Souls, the game also has a lot of decisions to make, similar to Mass Effect. The player can make these decisions to change how they interact with NPCs, and ultimately how the game progresses and ends. Gameplay begins with character customization, wherein the player selects a magic type and equipment for Harkon. Each of the magic types represents a play style that the player will be using during the game. The red style is Brawling, which focuses on damaging enemies. The green style is Deception, which focuses on stealth and hidden attacks. And the blue is Solace, which focuses on healing and buffs. On the equipment selection, the player will select what kind of equipment Harkon will start with, either the light armor of a rogue, the medium armor of a cleric, or the heavy armor of a warrior. As gameplay begins, we meet our hero, Harkon, and Kaslo, the monk who freed him from his prison. Kaslo freed Harkon from his jail cell to assist with killing the demons that have overtaken the monastery and killed everyone inside. After a brief look around, the heroes find a most unwelcome visitor in the monastery, one of the demons who has overtaken it and killed all the inhabitants. From here we engage in a tutorial-like battle while the enemy patiently stands there waiting for you to figure out how to hit him. The game plays essentially just like Dark Souls. Right button is a light attack, right trigger charges a strong attack, left button to hold up your shield, and the right stick to move around, and you can tap R3 as well to target. Following the completion of the tutorial battle, the game itself commences. Like many adventure RPG games, the game consists of a series of challenges such as find the key, pull the lever, or just defeat the big enemy. The game has several main areas in it, and a handful of bosses to be defeated as well. Much in the vein of Dark Souls, the story is expanded on by finding notes strewn throughout the area. The notes act as almost video logs by NPCs that we haven't met, detailing the attack, the effects of the attack, and the effects of the attack on the outside world. You'll find notes from the monks themselves, notes from the warriors, or notes that were to be sent to the outside world but never made it for obvious reasons. Right off the bat, the game introduces the notion that some of the creatures are blind and that you can sneak past them. This gives you a Dishonored-esque decision to make, whereas do you want to destroy all the creatures you come across, or will you avoid combat as much as possible and sneak your way through? Avoiding combat isn't always possible though, based on where monsters are placed or the fact that not every creature is blind. Loot and equipment can be found in a number of ways, either by killing monsters and getting a drop, opening a chest, or finding it just lying around or in a destructible environment menu like a pot or a box. In addition, killing monsters gives you experience points, and while it's a small amount at first, this game has a very unique modifier system. The more XP you have on you, the more XP you get from enemies you've killed. So your decision then is, do you use the XP points to level up your character, or do you keep them on you and risk them as you get better rewards from enemies? To improve the risk versus reward of this mechanic, upon death you'll lose all the experience points you've gained as well as your modifier. However, when you return to where you died, your ghost will be there, and if you retrieve your ghost before a certain amount of time has passed, you'll get your XP points back. The glowing crystals strewn about the game world act as your checkpoint system, not unlike bonfires in Dark Souls. If you die, you'll respawn at the last crystal you used, and you can use your experience points here to upgrade Harnick. Unlike in Dark Souls, using a crystal to recover doesn't respawn all the enemies in the area. However, it does reset your modifier. Any experience modifier you've accumulated before you touch a crystal will be gone. However, you'll also recover your health and any health potions you used, which are limited and extremely precious. Health potions in this game are a lot like Estus flasks. You press the square button to use them and they heal a large amount, though they do take time to drink. While you're learning the mechanics at the start of the game, you also need to be very careful with how your HP is doing. With only 2 flasks to start with, if your HP gets too low to begin with, you're going to end up needing to use a crystal to restore your health and also lose all the XP modifiers you've gained. Well, that concludes the overview of the story and mechanics of the game, but the real question is, how is it? Is it a good game? Did I like it? Let's go over the pros and cons for Lords of the Fallen. The biggest pro I can give this game is its pacing, and I know that's kind of an ambiguous term that gets thrown around a lot, but I really do appreciate that the game starts you off slow, gives you a second to understand the mechanics, gives you a second to get some story information, and then throws you into it. It's definitely a step back from the Dark Souls meta of, hey, welcome to the game. Here's the 10-story tall asylum demon. Good luck! So the pacing is something I could definitely appreciate. The biggest con I have for the game is the combat, which probably seems a little strange, because as I said, it plays almost exactly like Dark Souls, and Dark Souls is my jam, so Vertigo, why don't you like the combat? Well, to me, the combat is like a watered-down version of Dark Souls. It has the same combat controls and the same general principle of light attack, strong attack, and each weapon has its own set, but it lacks the parry and riposte, which was like 30% of the upper level skill, and overall it just doesn't come off as fluid. The attacks are in general slower, which I'm not going to hold against the game because that sets to the pacing. But at the same time, half of Dark Souls is being able to flow your attacks together and create combos that work for the situation you're in and against the specific opponent. In this game, you just jam the R1 or R2 button until something's dead. And there is some strategy involved to it, whether you're using running attacks, backstabs, waiting for an opening, there is, and I'm not going to take that away from the game, but at the same time, if a different game that came out earlier has already done it better, why would you want to do it worse? To add on to that, the rolling in this game is completely useless. In Dark Souls, rolling not only adds the ability to dodge, but also gives you invincibility frames, which lets you dodge through opponent attacks and evade big hits. Rolling in this game is substantially slower, even at the lightest equipment level. The fastest roll here is probably still slower than the fastest Dark Souls roll, and it doesn't give you invincibility frames, at least not as far as I can tell. Maybe it does, and it just doesn't give you as many, but either way, it's basically ineffective for combat purposes. The number of times that I tried to roll through an opposing attack and ended up getting killed, staggered, or just in general knocked back was insane, and I've essentially just given up on it completely. The next big plus I want to give this game is for the experience modifier system. I found it to be extremely innovative and gave this game something different, something new, which is something that I was struggling to find from Dark Souls. Grinding is something that I generally enjoy to do in video games, but it's still tedious no matter how much I like it or think it's necessary. But having the multiplier system gave even grinding a challenge. How long can you go without having to restock on health potions? Or how long can you go without feeling too nervous about losing all your experience points? I thought it added a different metric and mechanic to the game that made it much more enjoyable in the long run. The last point I want to give this game is both a plus and a minus, and it's the amount of customization you can give your player, but also the devaluing of armor. In Dark Souls and other games, you have to work much harder to get different kinds of armor. In this game, it starts you off with one specific kind, but it's no more than 30 minutes, maybe an hour into the game that you have not just the kind you started with, but the other two options, as well as a host of different weapons and armor. I applaud them for wanting to give the player as much customization as possible. That's a very important aspect in RPG games, and a loading screen even says, please mix and match your armor to suit your situation, or if you just like the look. That's amazing. I love that they wanted to give the player that much ability. On the flip side, though, I think it really devalues the long-term quest of the game. It removes the sense of accomplishment from spending a lot of time to get a special armor or weaponry. Those elements are still in the game, but you want to make the strongest impression possible right off the bat. And when right off the bat you can pick up some crazy awesome equipment for almost no effort, it takes a lot away from the experience. So hats off to trying to give the player all that customization, but you still got to make the player work for it. Overall, I'm very pleased with Lords of the Fallen. I'm skeptical because of how much it borrows from Dark Souls. It doesn't really feel like it's its own game, but I appreciate that it tried to put a twist on it to make it fresh and new. So, in the end, the game isn't perfect, but I appreciate that it gave it a good effort. So, overall, I gave the game a 7.5 out of 10. Does it deserve more? I'm not gonna lie, probably. But it just lacks the uniqueness, the pizzazz. If this game had come out before Dark Souls, it would probably be an 8.5, 9, maybe 9.5 out of 10. But since it didn't, it seems like it had the way paved for it a little bit. Like, Dark Souls set the tone, and they put their own spin on it. And that's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it doesn't make a great game to take the mechanics from another game and put a twist on them. I love the mechanics, I love the gameplay, I love the story. The game just needed something more to tie it together, and it couldn't deliver. So overall, 7.5 out of 10. It was a great game. I would easily recommend you go out and pick it up. If you have PlayStation Plus, it's free. If you don't, it's like $8, $9, maybe $15 at most. I would really recommend that you go do it. It's an awesome game. If you like adventure RPGs, I think you'll really be into it. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you found it informative and helpful. If you did, drop me a like, leave me a comment, let me know what you want to see from me in the future, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have an awesome day, guys. Peace out.